Right, leading the bulletin this morning, the registration process for delegates is not yet concluded. The first day of the conference was marred by late registrations and replacement of delegates. As some delegates could not attend the conference, they had to be replaced by others who were not registered on the system. The ANC's steering committee was set to meet last night to iron out the delay in the registration process, as it could ultimately put on hold on the tabling of the conference credentials by ANC NEC member Senzo Mchunu. For more on what we can expect today, we cross live to SABC senior news reporter Chriselda Lewis, who's now on standby for us. Chriselda, very good morning to you. Now it is day 2 of the conference. What can we expect to come out of Nasrec today?
Well, a very good morning to you, Mkolisi. Indeed, live from Nasrec on this, the second day of the ANC's conference. Of course, indeed, as your intro pointed out, many delays that we saw yesterday in the registration process of those delegates not too far from here at UNISA in Omonde. That's where you saw hundreds of these delegates try to register, some of them over a number of days. There'd been quite a number of challenges there. The system had been offline for a couple of hours. There'd also been concerns about some of the information that needed to be properly captured on the system itself. So that, of course, we saw a lot towards the early morning into the afternoon. Was certainly going to put a delay on the start of the conference itself. You would know that, as you correctly pointed out, the adoption of the credentials was certainly not going to take place, or any other process indeed. All right, let's take a look at who's arriving there. Let me ask my colleague Kina to point towards that direction, and I'll give you a sense of, see some of those blue lights vehicles arriving there. Mkolisi, I had to stand out of shot there, of course, just to bring you that. It's going towards a direction which we cannot see. You would also see that towards my left here, that is one of the areas where the media is certainly not allowed to go into, so I'm not able to give you an exact idea of who that is at this point. But indeed, yesterday we saw many of those delays taking place. Certainly the adoption of the credentials was not going to take place. And eventually, once we were told then by the ANC's Pulemabe that they'd captured about 90% of the delegates, there'd still been quite a number of delegates that had been stationed outside. In fact, we understand that this morning there are still a number of delegates that have not registered at this particular stage. We're hoping perhaps that the ANC would be able to give us an idea of exactly where the process is now, because that would certainly put another delay to this conference itself. Yesterday, you saw the report being delivered by the ANC president, touching on a number of things. The issue of load shedding, which has really become a stickler for the ANC as well as the government itself in dealing with the issue of load shedding. We've seen over the past couple of days the head of the power utility resigning. What kind of crisis does that create? Certainly does not inspire confidence to the ordinary mass of the country. Him speaking about, the ANC renewal, recoveries of monies due to state capture, and a number of issues. I'll speak to Sandile Swana, who is a political analyst, just very shortly on that particular issue. In fact, let me bring him in now. Ask my colleague Kina to please join us here with Mr. Sandile Swana. Mr. Swana, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. I mean, yesterday we started off very rocky. And would it be a bit too far-fetched to say what we saw yesterday in terms of, such delays, even with the accreditation process of the ANC's own delegates, is a reflection of how far the party has even come when it talks about renewal and dealing with its own internal issues?
Yes, it was indeed a reflection of how much success they've had in creating the renewal of the African National Congress. This renewal has been necessary since the days of Nelson Mandela, when he pointed out that there are new people who have different characters that are coming into the ANC. Careerists, opportunists, and criminals are entering in the 1990s. So by 22 years ago, around the year 2000, you started to see the emergence of documents such as the new cadre, as well as the Eye of the Needle document, saying that you need a new type of person to be a member of the African National Congress. So the people who are in the ANC, relative to the work that they have to do, generally speaking, as we see today, they are unfit for purpose. So that is why even the process of creating a credible membership system within 5 years, from 2017 to 2022, has not yet happened. They spent the whole day yesterday trying to verify members to come in as if they are whether they are the valid ones who must be here. The whole day, and they still couldn't finish. Today they are going to try and adopt credentials, which means the entire membership system is going to take them 2 days before they get to the substantive issues that they are here to discuss.
I want to talk about what the ANC president also touched on, but before we do that, very notable, the former president, Jacob Zuma, walking in. Do we read anything from that, or am I just being a journalist here? Him walking in as the current ANC president is beginning to go through this report on what has been achieved, where the failures and some of the successes may have been. Do we read anything from that? And I mean, there was quite a loud applause from inside plenary when he walked in.
Yes, the English-speaking people usually talk about making an entrance. Whether you call it a grand or a notorious entrance, it's another issue, but it was a mighty entrance nevertheless. Designed by Jacob Zuma, who believes in the culture, that you stand in front of your enemy. Your enemy must know that we are here. So Zuma was telling Ramaphosa, Mandashe, and that group of the other faction, the Buffalo faction, that indeed I am still here, I'm still standing, and I'm ready for battle.
And the disruptions that we saw, I'd been listening on the radio at the time. I was nowhere near a television because we were at the accreditation center. We still had hundreds of delegates that wanted, to get their tags. You could hear on the radio, as the ANC president was speaking, certain members inside of the ANC, inside plenary, disrupting. That was to be expected, do you think, on the basis that we've seen in the run-up to this, in the run-up to this conference, some of the delegates from some of the provinces making clear that they want some kind of change?
Yes, let me then say this, that my prediction was that Siboniso Duma and Mtolo from would be able to say to their faction, let's be orderly, let's win our victories procedurally like they did mid-year. Mid-year this year, they did a spectacular job. And I still think they are going to do that job even now. However, the problem that we have, because there are certain actions that whether it's the elections committee under Kgalema Motlanthe, the disciplinary committee of the ANC, and other such, the ethics committee, integrity committee of the ANC, in the past, call it 5 days, they've done some dramatic, provocative things to some of the factions in the ANC. For instance, the disqualification of Tony Yengeni without looking at readily available evidence, who happens to belong to a faction that is not the Cyril Ramaphosa faction.
Does that not further drive, Mr. Swana, this notion, I guess by some analysts, that Cyril Ramaphosa is dealing with those who clearly and openly do not support him by the action that you are talking about regarding Tony Yengeni, to which subsequently he then won? I saw him, in fact, enter the accreditation center yesterday, very upbeat.
Yes, all of them. Bear in mind that all of them, including the ones who are being dealt with now, have dealt with their own comrades before. So the issue of dealing with people is now part of the ANC culture, dealing with people not on democratic and lawful and ethical just principles, but on factional basis. So I saw it as a firing of warning shots by the Mandashe Ramaphosa faction towards the RT faction when they were suspending others, and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, all these letters that were flying all over the show. Those were warning shots. Unfortunately, there were also shots of provocation. And that provocation then manifested itself to the point that the entire delivery of the speech, which is 17 pages, was done under bodyguards. The security had to come closer to the stage because Mandasha was worried that these people might maybe jump onto the stage and start clapping the president or something like that.
That would be very dramatic. But anyway, let's get into that report. He spoke about, essentially that report is accounting in terms of what the ANC has done since it's come into power, what it has managed not to do, where the improvements need to take place. But key issues, Eskom, the collapse of these SOEs, the state capture, what is being done to recover monies, I guess to aspire that kind of confidence that it wasn't just a commission, but something has been done to recover the monies that were illegally transferred to wherever. The issue of education, early childhood development, are some of the issues that he touched. Was that enough, though? Do you think that report gave the sense that the ANC has made some inroads in trying to deal with some of, because in your conversation I had with you early on, you did say that the ANC has always wanted to have that influence on state, on the government itself, if I may. Did it do enough? Or did he say enough in there to aspire that kind of confidence?
The report, to a degree, was honest. And Ramaphosa said in the report that in some areas they've stagnated. In other areas they've started regressing. Now, if you talk about Eskom from 1998, 1996, that time, Eskom has not gotten better. In fact, under Ramaphosa's Eskom is worse than that of Zuma, and Zuma's Eskom was bad. And Zuma's Eskom was worse than that of Mbeki. And Mbeki played his role, by the way, in causing the crisis at Eskom. Zuma contributed his bit, and literally then Ramaphosa buried Eskom. So, and another thing on this, there are two things about Eskom. One is that we don't know. Since 1998, they've known that load shedding is coming in 2007, 2008, and it did come. But today, we do not know when it is going to finish. Ramaphosa has been in power in the ANC for 5 years. He cannot stand up and tell us when is he finishing with this load shedding, because load shedding needs to be finished.
But he said he cannot give timelines. It was a couple of days ago, he was asked by one of the journalists, when can he tell South Africans this is going to end? What was it yesterday? We were on stage 6. I'm afraid I can't even keep tally. Yeah. On stage 6 yesterday, and he's categorically said he can't tell you. Can't tell you and I or South Africans when we'll see an end to this issue of load shedding.
I'll put it to you this way. The first time I went to university was to go and study software engineering, and I qualified at university. So the engineering process is the same in every discipline. There's a thing called an engineering process. It doesn't matter which discipline you are in. Right. And engineering, the idea of engineering is to be precise, to know the start time and the finish time of when a particular infrastructure or installation, whatever it is you are developing, is going to happen. So what he can then say is that he has probably abandoned consulting with South African engineers. We have some of the best in the world engineers in South Africa. I can say that without fear of contradiction. The problems at Eskom, the people who can solve them are born South Africans. They are here, they are well qualified, and they can tell you we can start this and finish it on this day. So if you do not know, it is because we have not asked them. So that is the other problem. On the economic side as well, every economic plan has got dates. Start and finish, whether it's the transformation of China, transformation of South Korea, transformation of Singapore. You have to start a 5-year plan and this and the other thing. So these things have got time. And then let's come to the issue of money. The estimated money lost under state capture is no less than 500 billion. Now, when somebody comes and announces that he has recovered 3 billion,
that was 3 billion for Eskom, and then the ANC president said another 3 billion, is it, from other 5 billion. Yes, that's correct.
So let's call it 8 billion, even if we were to call it 11 billion. But if the money that is missing is 500 billion,
nowhere near.
It's nowhere near. Now, this is a characteristic of this government, that they will tell you that we've raised 1.3 trillion in investment from foreign investors. Yeah. They don't tell you that you actually needed 30 trillion. What they are telling you now, it's like somebody who's got high blood pressure and he takes a quarter of a tablet. It says, I'm taking my treatment. And that is been the characteristic of the ANC government, more especially after the Polokwane conference.
Mr. Swana, just a moment. I want to remind our viewers as well of what was said by the electoral chair regarding, you recall, the shenanigans around Tony Yengeni, when he was told he also received that letter saying that he was not to stand for position in the NEC. That then again reversed. Let's take a listen to what the chief of the commission has said pertaining to that particular debacle. As we were having that conversation with political analyst Sandile Swana, of course, him talking about, the ANC itself on its own internal processes, certainly there should have been a certain procedure that could have been followed in order for them to establish that there had been an expansion when it came to the issue regarding the criminal record of Mr. Tony Yengeni. Let me bring in Mr. Swana once again, back to the vetting processes. The typical example of what happened to Mr. Tony Yengeni, there seemed to have been a rush to send out letters to who the ANC believed would not stand for certain positions, but a simple error like that, what does it say?
What I will tell you is that public administration is a subject that is taught in our universities. Whether you are going to Forte, you are going to UNISA, many of our universities, in fact, our fathers qualified in this in the 50s. Now, it's not a new subject, but those people who are qualified in this subject, they are not the ones who are given the duties. Because people, if we are to be honest and brutally honest, people like Khalima Mantlande, they learn by doing. They never went to any university, to be quite brutal about it. So the people who know public administration are not the ones running that thing. And if they are the ones who are giving advice, it is ignored in favor of political and factional expediencies. In South Africa, anywhere, a mistake like this should not have happened, let alone in the ruling party of the magnitude of the African National Congress, because it's a subject that we're experts in South Africa, public administration.
Mr. Sandile Swana, thank you very much indeed for your time. We really do appreciate it. Helping us unpack all of this on SABC television as well as radio as well. You could certainly look out for more of his analysis on the events. What we're expecting Mkolisi today is, those closed sessions, and we're expecting perhaps by the looks of things, the program today perhaps to run into the early hours of the morning. Stay tuned also to our continuing coverage here on the SABC News channel, because I will make my way from here to the Accreditation Centre, where I do understand there are still some delegates that are outstanding in terms of getting their tags, and this is a clear indication that the credentials process itself will not take place until every single one of those delegates does receive their tags and that vetting process is underway. We know there are a number of challenges, some of them indicating they've been, trying to get accreditation for about 3 days. That has not happened. While the numbers have decreased quite drastically, when we last heard from the ANC's Pule Mabe yesterday, he had indicated that there'd been about 90% of the accreditation process of those delegates that had been concluded. But certainly we'll give you the latest update in just a short while when we make our way to Omonde. That's where some of the delegates continue to be registered. We hope we'll be able to get a sense from the ANC exactly where they are in terms of that process. But at the start of the program this morning, what we're expecting is for there to be those closed sessions.
All right, Chriselda Lewis is SABC News senior reporter out there in Nasrec for us, keeping an eye on things for us this morning. And of course, also just making sense of some of the conversations that were had yesterday. This is also at the back of the delivery of that political report by President Cyril Ramaphosa.